time coming, but it's finally time for the How to Build a DIY Aquarium Step-by-Step series. So if you're interested in building DIY aquariums, especially ones made of wood, fiberglass, resin, and epoxy, well, you're on the right video. So if you see the thing behind me, if that kind of thing interests you, then you're in the right video. So we're not going to go 1,800 gallon build in this video, but we are going to build a 315 gallon DIY plywood, fiberglass, epoxy aquarium. So it's going to use wood, it's going to use fiberglass cloth and resin, and 2-part epoxy, as well as glass for the front wall of the aquarium. So we're going to build it step by step. I'm going to show you everything you have to do to build it. We're going to go through, each phase of the build. I'm not going to skip anything. So if you watch it, you would be able to repeat this, and it wouldn't be just for this exact footprint or this exact amount of gallons. I'll cover all these details in the video, but there's a lot of nuances to it, and I'll explain why I made the decisions I made. And because this is the thing, is when you're doing DIY, it's all custom. You're going to see why it's the shape it is. You're going to see why I chose to do the filtration the way I did, the whole 9 yards. And I'll also show options. So hey, if you don't want to do the filtration quite like this, here's another way you can do it with the same build, the same method. Just make this adjustment here or there. So I think it makes sense before we get started to maybe show you my credentials. If you're not familiar with this YouTube channel, maybe you haven't seen all the videos on the tanks like the one behind me, the Predator Bay 1,800 gallon DIY aquarium. So let me take you around real quick and show you the aquariums that I've built, and just sort of talk through how long I've been building these aquariums, because it goes all the way back. So let's take a look at the big beast real quick, the 3,000 gallon. Okay, so this monstrosity here is the 3,000 gallon. This is a 6 feet front to back, 3 feet tall, and 21.5 feet long aquarium. And as you can see, it is a stacked build. So this is stacked 2x4s with plywood on the inside, and then fiberglass mat and resin, and then 2-part epoxy, obviously on a big heavy duty stand. The reason I cannot show you the front of this aquarium is because I am doing a big series on revamping the aquascape and everything, so I can't give it away. But this is an example of a very, very large aquarium that I built back in 2018. It's 3,000 gallons, it's massive, and it is a stacked build. Let's take a look at some others. Now, of course, here's Predator Bay. This is an 1,800 gallon aquarium, DIY, of course. This is what I call the frame method, so like the picture frame method. So I basically have a frame, and I've created a bunch of picture frames where I put glass panels in there. So the aquarium is mostly just this framing out where the glass panels will go, and this aquarium is mostly glass panels on the sides, on the back, on the front. And this is a 13.5 foot long aquarium, 3 feet tall, and 6 feet front to back in most of it. Again, it's custom, so it's built around these poles. That's one of the nice things about custom. You can take care of all those things. So this is sort of the picture frame method. We saw the stack method. Let's go check out some more. So this is an aquarium I call the 600 gallon reef slope. This is another stack build, and this is because I wanted this to be extremely, extremely strong. I wanted to be able to climb on top of it to get the things up in the ceiling. So that's the reason when you see me doing a stack build, it's because I either need to go on top of the aquarium, be able to stand on top of it and all that stuff. I need it to be strong as heck, or it's because it's 3,000 gallons and I was paranoid about anything happening and it getting on my floor. So this is just another example of a stack build. And this is one where we did a trick where the aquarium is 4 feet deep, but the glass is only 3 feet tall. So to save money on the glass and not having to go to the thickness, we basically just built up the bottom, and then we start the glass 12 inches up. So we don't have to get a thicker glass. And yes, there's a tiny little bit of the aquarium that's not that visible in the front, but that's not really where anything is anyway. So you save a lot of money, and you get a really cool tank that's 4 feet deep. That's not usually that easy to do because it cranks the materials up. And here we have what are called the double DIY build. So this is a 750 gallon build over here. This is 5 feet front to back, 6 feet long, and 3 feet tall. And then over here we have the 600 gallon Asian jungle. This is a 6 foot long, 4 foot front to back, 3 feet tall. These, together were the double DIY builds. And this is what I call the frame method. So all around the aquarium, you can see it is framed in with 2x4s, basically just like a wall, like a stud wall, with plywood in the front and then the epoxy coat. And it's the same with the 600 over here. And of course, the one side has the picture frame where the glass is going to go, which is just 2x4 framing. So just an example, another example of another type of build. So we've seen 3 types already, and I'm actually going to be building in this video a 4th type of build, which is the sort of the true plywood build. So it's not going to have stacked 2x4s, it's not going to have stud wall, you know, framing, and it's not going to have a bunch of picture frames. It's actually going to be plywood bottom, plywood sides, and then a picture frame front where the glass is going to go. So it's primarily just a plywood build with the picture frame for the glass. And it's going to be different in that instead of having a sump, it's going to have an internal wetlands filter, which is the first time I built one of these, but I'm very excited for how this is going to go. So long story short, I've been building these aquariums and these different methods going back to 1998. This is not all the aquariums I've built, this is just all the ones I have right now. That's kind of one of the nice things with these is in the past, I would, the materials were a lot cheaper. So if I was moving, I could build one, and then when I moved, I could just cut it up and build another one, custom to fit the space of the new house, that sort of thing. So, all right, let me talk a little more about the methodology behind these builds. Okay, so you heard me talk about it a couple times, which is custom. Custom is one of the main things. Custom in the sense that make it fit the space, custom that make it fit your budget, but also custom to make it fit the size, because the reality is for example, the 3,000 gallon, where am I going to go buy a 21.5 foot long aquarium, 6 feet front to back, for an affordable price? It's impossible. Plus, let's say I did buy it, how would I get it in my house? It's just not realistic. So most of these aquariums, they're built on site. They're more cost effective than the alternate. I mean, when you're talking the big tanks, they are way more cost effective. I mean, like instead of an $80,000 tank, it could be an $8,000 tank, something like that. But so for the 315 gallon we're going to build, it's probably not going to really be cheaper than if you just bought a off-the-shelf 300 gallon. But it's a completely different shape than the off-the-shelf 300 gallon. It's custom. It's fitting a specific spot that I have available for it that wouldn't work for me to go get a 300 gallon off-the-shelf aquarium. That is a huge difference. And the other thing is, it's not going to cost probably more. It's probably right about the same. It's not really a savings thing, it's a customization thing. So when you're on smaller tanks, when I say smaller, 100, 200, 300 gallon, I think it's not really about saving money. I think it's about customization. And when you get to really large tanks, 1,800 gallons, 3,000 gallons, etc., it's way more about saving money as much as it is about being custom. And the fact that no one's just out there making those tanks. It would just be somebody else building you a custom tank and then having to charge you accordingly. And lastly, in terms of my methodology for these builds, one thing I want to make very clear early on is I do not cut corners to save cost. There's a lot of water in these aquariums, and for me, the number one priority and the number 2 priority is the water stays in the tank. So they need to be very strong, no leaks, no 3,000 gallons, no 2,000 gallons of water on my floor, none of that. I am not going to cut corners to save a few bucks here or there. In my opinion, if you have to do that, then you should just wait and save up more money and just delay the build, because I just think that is a very bad decision. So absolutely, can you build these cheaper than I build them? Sure you can, definitely. I mean, heck, you saw that I built a couple stack builds aquarium. Those are insane. Those are insanely strong, and that's a ton of material, and that's not necessarily the sanest thing to do, but if you've got 3,000 gallons in an aquarium and you want that water to stay in the aquarium, that is the way you build that tank. That tank is literally a tank. I mean, it's strong as heck, it's not going anywhere, and so sometimes that's what you have to do if, to satisfy the paranoia of having all that water on the floor. Okay, so we know my credentials for building aquariums, we know my methodology of how I build these, and we know that custom is a big deal. So let's take a look at this build and why we're doing a 315 gallon aquarium and why we're choosing the sizes we choose. And one last quick thing before we start this DIY build, I think it's very important to include all of the prices for everything. So as we build this aquarium, I'll keep up here on the screen a running total of everything I have into this in terms of money, and I'll do my best to sort of factor in time, though time will vary so much depending on an individual skills for building this, as well as money is going to vary quite a bit. When I built the 3,000 gallon in 2018, if I were to build that now, it would easily cost 2 times more, maybe even 3 times. So this is the end of 2022. Inflation, prices, they are what they are where I live in the United States, here in Maryland in the United States. Those types of things are going to vary depending on where you live, so nothing I can really do about that, but I will absolutely show you, to the penny what it cost me to build this, and I'll give you a rough time frame and how long it took me to build it. I think that's a valuable data point that can help you with your decision on, if you want to build something like this, it's a good data point to have. Cost, you know, like I said, I don't cut corners, but hey, cost is important. You know, we only got so much money. You can only do what you can do, right? So, all right, let's get into this build. Okay, you see that empty spot on the floor? Well, that's what we're gonna fix. This is why this is a custom 315 gallon build, because we have over here a window. We don't want to block a window. So this is the edge of our build over here. And as we move over to here, we have another aquarium. I don't want the new aquarium right up against this existing aquarium. So we need a space in there. So we have a limit here. Up above it, we have a mini split. I don't want the aquarium blocking the mini split. I don't want it blocking my access to it. So a 300 gallon that can't be super long, maybe 5 feet long, that means it's got to be taller and thicker to get that 315 gallons of volume. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going 5 feet long, and we're going to come out from the wall 40 inches, which is going to line us up with the front of this aquarium, while also leaving us plenty of room between the new aquarium and the 1,800 gallon Predator Bay. We want a nice big open aisle here. We want a nice 5 feet across here, so we're not crammed in at all. So that leaves us with a 60 inches long, 5 feet by 40 inches out from the wall, front to back, and then 3 feet tall. This is our 315 gallon aquarium. So that's going to be our footprint. So first step is I've taken the liberty of going ahead and purchasing some materials I know I need for the build, and I went ahead and cut up the 2x4s and 2x6s to get the frame started. So I'm going to put on the screen right now all the costs of the initial materials to start the build, keeping in mind that the glue and the screws, we won't use all of them in this build, but the reality of it is if you get a smaller bottle of that and a smaller thing of screws, by the time it's said and done, you're not saving any money. So it's better to get the larger containers and just have some extras, because you know what? There's always another build. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and build the base of the aquarium, and I'm gonna build it in 3 stages. And as I do it, I'm gonna stop and explain each stage and why I built it that way and what it's for. All right, let me jump in and start building. Okay, it may not look like much, but this is a very important part. This is the base of the aquarium. So there's 2 main functions this is gonna provide us. One, it's gonna give us something to screw our supports in, our vertical supports, something to screw into. And 2, it's spreading the weight of the aquarium out over this large footprint. So it's dispersing weight. So very important that this is square. Obviously, if this isn't square, your whole aquarium won't be square. So it won't look as nice, and you'll have gaps to fill and a little more fiberglass work to do if it's not square. The more square it is, the easier it is on the back end. So also it gives you the idea of the footprint. So you can see the 60 inches or 5 feet in length, the 40 inches back towards the wall, and of course you can't see the height yet, but you know, we're getting there. All right, so stage 1, the base is in place. Now we're going to start building the vertical supports. So stage 1, the base is in place. This is simply just 2 levels of 2x4s screwed together. Like I said, just to provide weight distribution and something to screw the vertical supports in. So very simple, just 2 rows of 2x4s screwed together. All right, now it's time to start making the vertical supports. All right, as you can see, we've got the vertical supports in place. So what we've done here is we have 2 lengths of 2x4, a longer one, which is the guide 2x4, and then the shorter one, which is actually where the strength comes from for the beam, is it's going to be sitting on top of this. So this post is going to be supporting the beam, which is going to be sitting right here and then spanning across to the other side. So the reason we are doing that, you know, relatively large span, roughly 3 feet or so, is that's what gives us space underneath to do sumps and things of that nature. Even though we're not doing a sump for this build, I would still build it this way because you can get plenty of strength and support from the beams and from the interconnections between the beams that we're going to be building up top. That you give yourself the flexibility that even if you aren't doing a sump, there's no reason to use up all that space with an additional beam unless you just wanted to use 2x4 lumber for the entire thing and not 2x6s for the beam here. Then you could do that, certainly do that, but it isn't necessary. So you can see that for the posts, for the vertical supports, we've just screwed these 2 together, and then we've screwed them to the base that we did in the first step of the video, and it's just screwed in with 3 to 3.5 inch screws all the way around. I've done it this way many times, and I've also done it with L brackets as well. I haven't really found much of a difference at all. I've never experienced a failure of any type, even a movement of any type with either one. And additionally, if you were extremely paranoid, you could put a 2x4 in between each of the posts and then screw through that into the post, and that basically creates blocking, which just makes the legs blocked in even more than they already are with a bunch of 3.5 inch screws going through them. But again, not necessary, but if you want to go into paranoia mode or overkill mode, those are some options you would have. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start building the beams. They're going to go across and the interconnects between the beams, and that's going to be out of this 2x6 lumber, which you see we have pre-cut over here to different lengths. And once that is done, that will conclude the base portion of the aquarium. And as far as the guides and why this length is what it is will all make sense once you see the beams go in. So I'm going to go ahead and start building those beams. So here's one of the framing boxes I'm talking about for the top supports before I screw it together. So I recommend you definitely want to get it all squared up. I'm using these corner brackets to make sure it's all squared up, and then you want to make sure your inside boards are squared up, and then we're going to screw all this together. And we're going to create two of these boxes. One is going here and one is going here, and then there will be another 2x6 end cap on the end and on the end here, and that's going to give us a full frame support underneath the aquarium across the top. Keeping in mind with the plywood aquarium, the bottom plywood of the aquarium that is needs to be supported everywhere. It's similar to like an acrylic aquarium, where you have to support the entire bottom of the aquarium, versus glass usually has a plastic rim around it and you only support the rim. But here we need equal support underneath the entire sheet of plywood that will make up the bottom of our aquarium. All right, I'm going to screw this together, make a second one of these, and then we'll get it placed up here. I'll show you what it looks like, and then we'll get it screwed in. All right, I think at this point it's pretty easy to see what this is going to look like in terms of the shape of the aquarium. So it is definitely a nice chunky aquarium. Again, 5 feet long, 40 inches front to back. It'll be 3 feet tall. But you can see the method to the madness here. We've built two boxes here and here. We've connected them together in the middle, and we've connected it with the vertical supports. And you can see that all this top 2x6 framing is sitting on these vertical supports all the way around, all four sides. All six points, so where we have vertical beams. And you can see that it is screwed into the guides. So these are the guides, and these are screwed into here. This gives us a really good connection point between the top framing and our vertical supports, and that is done on each one of these, screwed in front and back, and then the two are screwed in the middle, and then we've got end boards screwed on the sides. You may be thinking, am I going to put boards here? Now you can, and it depends on how you're going to finish the aquarium. Sometimes it's a good idea to do it in the front, just to give you something for your facade to connect to, and that's actually going to be the case here. We're going to create them just in the front. In the back, it's not really needed. It's actually not needed in the front in terms of structure, because when we build our window frame, the actual water is way back here. It's not right on the, it's not right here. So we're not like we're lacking support. That's just going to be framing, then the glass. And the same with the back. So the water is actually going to be right on the edge here. You know, you're going to have vertical wood coming up, so it is supported. It's not like the water will be out over here sitting on the flat part of the aquarium, the flat plywood. It'll be fully supported, so it isn't needed, but it certainly does not hurt. And in terms of the front, where I will do it, I'll be doing it because it'll help with my front facade, give me locations to connect the fasteners and everything for the facade of the aquarium. So this completes part one of the build. We have the bottom foundation, the vertical supports, and the horizontal supports. What we're going to do in part two is we're going to build the actual plywood box for the aquarium. We're going to build the picture frame for the front where the glass will go, and we're going to build the internal baffles for the wetlands filter that we're designing for this. So that's going to really take shape once that part is done. It actually looks like an aquarium. And then in part three, we'll actually turn it into an aquarium by waterproofing it. That's where we'll be doing our fiberglass work, our two-part epoxy painting, and then we will get all the, if we're gonna do any sort of bulkheads or baffles or anything like that, that'll all take place then. And then lastly, after that, we'll do the external facade of the aquarium, get that looking nice, and then of course, get the aquarium running. So I'm going to put on screen here all the cost of the materials that got us to this point and the amount of time that I've spent on this to get us to this point. Keeping in mind, I'm going to have to guesstimate on the time because I'm filming, and I could obviously do this faster if I wasn't trying to demonstrate what I'm doing in film. So I'll guesstimate on that, but in terms of the cost, it's exact. I'm taking it right off the receipts, so no problems there. So stay tuned for part 2, where we really start turning this into what looks like a 315 gallon plywood aquarium.